Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am in beautiful Escazú, Costa Rica, on Sunday, the 23rd of March in the year 2025. And yes, indeed, we are in yet another big week. We've got another big week ahead. This last week was sort of the in-between week between the two eclipses in the eclipse corridor. And before I get into what's happening this coming week, I'm going to reflect back on what just happened in the last few days. Because the Sun conjunct Neptune on Wednesday, and then it went into Aries on Thursday. Now, I talked all about this last week, and we are going to be dealing with this Aries, Pisces, Pisces, Aries transition for a while. And the Sun is significant, as it is our life force, our vitality, but it was going there. It was going there into Aries, as it does every year, and the equinox happened on Thursday. And this week, we're having a bit of a reversal of that, because as we are experiencing this dynamic between Pisces and Aries, stuff's going to come up in everybody's lives. So, what came up in your life? And I told you to pay attention and look at this and listen and watch what happens between Wednesday and Thursday. And for me, I had an episode which is kind of still going on, but much better. I woke up Wednesday morning and my wrist was hurting, my left wrist. I'm right-handed, but it was my left wrist. And I didn't quite understand why, because nothing happened. Nothing happened on Monday or Tuesday or anything. And I said, well, maybe in my sleep, I slept funny. You know, you think you sleep funny and then you're in pain on the morning. And it didn't really bother me. And I went throughout my day, but noticing that the pain wasn't going away. And I thought, okay, well, it isn't that I slept funny. Now, when you injure yourself, you know you injure yourself, right? Physically. But Thursday morning I woke up and it was hurting even more. And I thought, oh goodness, this is a problem. And I looked at it and it was swollen. So I started icing it and I took some, medicine, painkillers. And I said, this is emotional. And how did I know that? Well, I follow something called German New Medicine, which I use on a regular basis and has never failed me. And I've spoken about it here before, I think, and people who know me know that I use this. And when something shows up physically that has no root in anything, especially like this, an injury, there's an emotional cause for it. Now, there's always an emotional cause. There's an emotional cause. We run into the door, we stub our toe, where there's something emotional going on. Most of our lives are driven by our emotions, our subconscious emotions, the emotions that we're not in touch with, getting our attention, our body's getting our attention. So this particular time, yes, I had no symptoms of like, oh, I fell. Oh, I twisted my arm. Oh, that hurt. Oh, goodness, that's going to hurt more tomorrow. Oh, I better ice. No. I just woke up and there it was. It's like when you get out of bed and you knock your back out. These are what we call conflict resolutions. To learn more about German New Medicine, you might want to look them up. Anyway, learninggnm.com. Anyway, they've never failed me. So I knew something emotional was going on. And I thought, okay, I have to figure this out. Well, I did. I'm not going to get into the long story, but it was indeed something to do with what I had done on Tuesday, and had been doing for a couple days, but actually culmination on Tuesday, and something that had happened a while ago. So it was sort of a pattern, a thing that happened, and that got resolved. And I was like, wow, this is profound. It was a profound moment. So between that Thursday and Wednesday, between that Sun to Neptune and then changing signs and going into Aries, the Sun leaving Pisces, the Sun going into Aries, I told everyone that something would probably happen for them. And it may be subtle because, Pisces is subtle. And it may be somewhat unrecognizable. You might brush over it. But if you're paying very close attention, and I had to, I was in pain. And of course, Aries is, Mars, and there's wounds, and there's, accidents and things. But when I realized what this was, I said, oh yeah, it's that Pisces Aries threshold that we're dealing with, that doorway. So think back, if you don't remember, recall what happened between Wednesday and Thursday, because this was important. This was a very instrumental thing going forward. Now, we saw Venus do this back in the early part of February, between February 3rd and 4th. I don't think it was that dramatic because things were still not ready to make these shifts yet. But what happened here, for me anyway, was a signal of a new day to come, which is Aries, and things that I worked out as a result of, stuff that I had done, but I pushed forward through, and stuff I'd done during the Pisces phase. And then once we went Sun into Aries, it was like, okay, I get it. Now I get it. Okay, this is a new day. This is important. You want to pay attention to this, because this week, folks, my Astrodarlings, Neptune is going to go into Aries. And by the time you and I see each other again, or meet again, shall we say, on Sunday the 30th, next Sunday, which I can't believe March is almost over, yes, Neptune will be in Aries. And that's one of the big, big, big moments of this week. So that's going to happen 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday the 30th. So on, Eastern Time, it'll be 6 a.m. my time. So when you get up on Sunday morning, if you're listening from the East Coast, you'll have Neptune going into Aries. And the rest of the country, when you get up on Sunday morning, you'll have Neptune in Aries. And anyone who's in Europe or the rest of the world, further going east, maybe you're listening from Australia, you're going to get that Neptune in Aries before everybody else. So, this is a big, big deal. And so we need to pay attention again between Saturday and Sunday, because, and this is all big stuff here, folks, big stuff, darlings, big stuff, because Neptune is going to do the same thing the sun just did. Okay, Neptune's going to do the same thing the sun just did, and it's going to bring something up, most likely, that has a similar theme or has something to do with that passage of the sun from Pisces to Aries. So now we're going to have something very similar in theme. I'm not saying the exact same events, because I sure hope not. I'm tired of taking things to calm my wrist. and my wrist is much better. It's much better. But we have to stay alert and pay attention to the theme that happened when that occurred last week, to the theme that is going to happen next week on Sunday, a week from today. And so when I come in to do my podcast here, sit down upstairs and do my podcast, I will be telling you all about what occurred in the last couple of days first. So we're relating this to that passage of the sun from Pisces to Aries, the start of the new astrological year, the March equinox, the end of the zodiac to the beginning of the zodiac, right? And Neptune is going to end its journey in the zodiac and go into Aries. Now, it's coming back to Pisces, so this is not the first and last time. It's going into Aries. It's going to stay in Aries. It's going to stay in Aries longer than Saturn's going to stay in Aries. And it's going to go out later this year, much later this year, and then it'll retrograde, and then it'll go back into Pisces, and then next year goes back into Aries. But pay attention. This is important. This is where we're spending the next 12 years with Neptune and Aries. Different theme. I kind of like Neptune in Pisces because it's its own sign. It's very comfortable there. This is very strange. Neptune's energy is flowing, water, rules Pisces. It's intuitive. It's sensitive. It's appreciating beauty. It is aesthetic in many ways. It's intuitive and psychic and just, in that sensitive realm. And it's all about the spiritual realms and and connection with the divine. Connection with the divine. And then Neptune goes into Aries, and that's not about connecting with the divine in the Neptune and Pisces sense. When we're connecting through the divine to the divine, there's going to be some other factors involved. You know, there could be some real cultural, ideological shifts and changes here with Neptune going into Aries, as there often is with an outer planet moving into a new sign. So this is why I keep hearing, the world is crazy, the world is crazy, the world is crazy. People saying, the world is really nuts. What is going on out there? What is happening? And I just said something to one of my friends before. It's like, what? She actually said to me, what are the planets doing? I said, outer planets are changing signs. This is rare occurrences that we are having so many at the same time. You know, when Neptune changed signs last time, it was like 4 years after Pluto changed signs, right? So there was none of this. There was none of this. It isn't like 6 months later, like it is now, 5 months later. It's really dramatic. And so all of this happening relatively around the same time is deeply transformational. And we are so lucky to be experiencing this level of transformation, but we are also, you know, on an unconscious, subconscious level, we're concerned. These things are happening, and it feels like our foundation is being shaken up, because we get used to these outer planets in a certain area. We settle into it because they stay a whole long time. So this is something that we have to pay a lot of attention to, because Aries is the warrior. Neptune is the peace bringer, right? Neptune likes peace. Neptune wants to bring spirit into the world, right? Bring spirit to everyone. This is not how it works with Aries. Aries is like, let's go start a fire. Where's the fire going? Let's make it bigger. So Neptune going to that sign is going to be very interesting, because Neptune, wherever Neptune goes, there's an idealizing character, okay? There's an idealization of something. So, for example, it's putting people or situations or themes on a pedestal. Neptune is also transcendence, but what happens, so let's use Neptune in Scorpio as a very good example. Well, Neptune in Scorpio, when Neptune goes into a sign, is looking for some sort of redemption, and it wants to transcend outmoded views and values in that area. So Neptune in Scorpio is a very easy one to trigger and talk about, because Neptune in Scorpio, Neptune went to Scorpio in the 50s, and then stayed until like the early 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, when it went into Sagittarius. And what was that? Well, what's Scorpio? What's the first thing you think of other than other people's money and death? Yes, there was death. There was sex. And suddenly, baby boomers who were born in the early 40s were becoming teenagers, and they had a different agenda than their parents, because they had Pluto and Leo. So that's fire, right? So then when they go into this sensual sign of Scorpio, when Neptune goes into that, these baby boomers are having their spring awakening, right? With Elvis Presley, and then lots of different rock stars, and then of course the Beatles. And so when Neptune went into Scorpio and stayed in Scorpio all those years, those people on the world stage in the collective unconscious, Elvis and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all these other guys and bands and performers, they were seen as sexual redeemers. And so there was a certain amount of hysteria when these performers appeared on TV, appeared in concert, were, seen somehow in the public eye. These these people were deeply sexual. Elvis swinging his hips, the Beatles shaking their hair. This is all, rock and roll is a very sexual energy. And so when at the advent of rock and roll, this is a big deal with Neptune going into Scorpio. Eventually, it was going to grab the attention of these teenagers, and they were going to put these people on a pedestal for the sake of sexual redemption. So this is a very interesting dynamic to watch. Now, of course, later, let's fast forward to Neptune in Aquarius, which happened in the 90s into the 2000s. I always think of that as the technology movement, and Neptune in Aquarius being, the iPhone. Suddenly, technology is the redeemer. Suddenly, Steve Jobs, in his black turtleneck on stage, is the guy we're paying attention to. No more swinging hips. It's a guy showing a device. And he's kind of geeky. And I always think of that image of him and think of him as the redeemer of Neptune in Aquarius, right? So this is the theme we're looking towards. And when Neptune goes into Aries, Aries represents new beginnings, the creative power of the life force. Fertility. It's like the Ace of Wands in the tarot. But Aries is also a pioneering sign, and they are a sign that likes to initiate and be first. And so this is going to be a very interesting ideology that is coming forward. Who are we going to see on the world stage that represents the Redeemer, the warrior Redeemer, the Redeemer of independence, So it can be some sort of rebellion. Aries is always about uprisings, crusades, and it can be war, as we know, but we want to see how this one plays out with Neptune there. And Neptune is also the false idol. So someone could get up there and be the leader, and then people are disillusioned by this person during this transit of Neptune in Aries. But we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this. This is going to be going on for a while. And so the first step is next week, next Sunday. Meanwhile, the other big thing happening this week is the solar eclipse, which is on the day before Neptune goes into Aries. It's Saturday the 29th. The new moon solar eclipse is at 9 degrees Aries, because we are in Aries season, and the sun and the moon meet together on a solar eclipse for a new moon. And that will happen on Saturday at 6:58 a.m. Eastern Time. So, you might not sleep well the night before, Friday into Saturday, because it might be like a lot of energy, depending on where that is for you. But this is a very powerful solar eclipse. It's in Aries, and Aries is going to be where a lot of the action is happening in these next months. Now, remember what I said about Venus and Mercury. They both stationed at degrees either on or close to this eclipse. So things that we have had happen in these last weeks, Venus went retrograde March 1st, and then Mercury went retrograde last Saturday, the 15th. These are times also to pay attention, because things are being told to us about this eclipse in those moments. So this is the lesser strong of the two eclipses. The other one was stronger because it was closer to the nodes, and I've told you that before. But this is very powerful nonetheless. It's still an eclipse, and it's a new moon. So afterwards, this is all about new beginnings, starting something. However, while we're going to lead up to Saturday and Sunday of new beginnings, Thursday, Venus goes back into Pisces. It retrogrades back into Pisces, 4:41 a.m. Eastern Time, Thursday the 27th. So as we're moving back, as Venus is moving back, Venus goes back into Pisces. And then Mercury goes back into Pisces on Saturday, the day of the eclipse, at 10:18 p.m. So around the clock, later that night, Mercury goes back into Pisces. So now as it stands in this moment, as I'm speaking to you, we've got the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Aries. And Chiron is there too, but much later, much longer. It's been there. This is very powerful that all of this is together. Sun, Mercury, Venus, communication, relationships, reaching out to people, seeing old friends, connecting with people you haven't talked to in a long time. Very nice. Reach out to your old buddies. However, as these guys are going back into Pisces, so if I look at my map of the days ahead, I'm going to see that as I get to Thursday, Venus and Neptune are going to conjunct. Of course they are, because as Venus enters Pisces at 4:41 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, a few hours later, she goes back over Neptune because she's going backwards. So this is her second passage over Neptune. Okay? Now, this is important because she's passing over Neptune now, but then only a few days later, Neptune goes into Aries. So that means when she turns direct and goes out and goes back into Aries again, she's going to pass over Neptune in Aries. She's not meeting Neptune. She's not meeting Neptune in Pisces again. She's meeting Neptune in Aries. And so this is going to be very interesting. And again, pay attention. Watch these dynamics on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's very interesting because Venus is now going back into one of her favorite signs, the place where she is exalted, back into Pisces, back to her intuition, her goddess-like energy, her, sensitive goddess-like energy instead of warrior goddess-like energy. So this is something where we get to experience the creativity, the sensitivity, the intuition, the artistry. So dive into your own artistry. Where is your artistry? Remember what I said in my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram the other day. I said that wherever your art is, where the thing is that you can't fix. Okay? The thing that you can't fix in your life, the thing that's a recurring theme that comes up and you work on it and has oftentimes a lot to do with Chiron. I've been posting this. I posted it a couple times, stories and stuff. This is where your genius is. This is wherever maybe your heart was broken when you were a child because your parents got divorced. It could be that thing, So that goes along with this story because we're looking for our deep sense of artistry, our deep sense of creativity in this moment with Venus and Neptune. So this is very important. Again, then there's Mercury. Mercury goes back into Pisces, 10:18 p.m., as I mentioned, and then half an hour later goes over Neptune because Neptune is edging closer and closer to the end of Pisces. And just in that 48-hour period between Venus and Mercury doing their thing, Neptune's moved enough to move into Aries hours later, the next morning. So pay attention to Venus, pay attention to Mercury. They have stories. They're following the same path. This is highly unusual. This is not something that happens on a regular basis. We don't see Venus and Mercury together doing the same thing at the end of a sign to go into an old sign, to go back and forth between an old sign and a new sign at the end of the zodiac. This means that there is some sort of redemption here for you. There is some deep redemption, deep connection and surrender to something for you. So surrender to whatever that is. Connect with it. What is it for you? Where are you needing surrender in your life? Where do you need to just let go of something and let the universe take over? And in that flash of the last moment, you'll get the answer. I highly recommend doing some spiritual ritual, whether you believe in going to church, temple, wherever you go to pray, to connect with spirit, walk by the river, go to the ashram, whatever you need to do it. This next week is highly important. And Neptune, like I said, will come back. But this is so much about this whole last degree of the zodiac into the new zodiac, a whole new zodiac wheel, right? So this is so much about the ending and the beginning and the ending. Two planets go back over the place of surrender. One planet moves forward over the place of surrender, and they are dancing between 29 Pisces and 0 Aries, the very end of the zodiac, the very beginning of the zodiac. This is very powerful. And the new moon happens in the new sign. There's lots of information for us here. What are you desiring to go forward this year in your life? Remember, we're still dealing with themes of like integration from the end of last year, because Mars still has not hit its place where it went retrograde yet. It's not going to be at 6 degrees of Leo for a long time. So yeah, Mars is involved in this because Mars is still dealing with a lot of past energies. And so when Venus and Mercury are backwards, we're still dealing with past energies, past stories, past people. Who do you need to forgive? At the end of the zodiac and the last moments on your knees, who do you need to forgive? Who do you need to ask for help? What deity is present for you? How are we doing this? What is happening in this moment for you? What are you wishing for? What do you need to let go of? This is so potent, so potent. Look for the symbols in your life. Look for themes of death and resurrection, like the Easter story. Look for endings and new beginnings, and then endings again and new beginnings. This is a back and forth. This is a story that is going to be with us for a little while. So please pay attention. Write to me. Tell me. info@thegoldenastrologer.com. Deb@debmcbride.com. I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer. Write to me. Say, hey, Deb, you wouldn't believe what happened. Tomorrow, the 24th of March, Sun and Mercury are going to meet at 3:48 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, this is important because when there's a retrograde, there is always a point where the sun, the inner planets anyway, they meet with the sun. So with Mars, it's usually the opposition. The sun and Mars are opposite. And it's always the conjunction with Venus and Mercury. So tomorrow, Mercury and the sun are meeting up. Now, Mercury and the sun meet up regularly. They're going to meet again when we get into Gemini. They're going to meet up in Gemini again, and Mercury won't be retrograde then. But they are meeting in Aries tomorrow, and it's very close to the beginning of Aries. And so they're in this place of connection, enlightenment with information. There's going to be some information. There's going to be some discussion between the sun and Mercury. And I bet the sun has a message from Venus, because yesterday, Saturday, the sun and Venus met. And this was really halfway through the Venus retrograde. So the Venus retrograde as of yesterday is half over. So we've got another 3 weeks of it. But we've got still more 2 weeks of Mercury retrograde, which is interesting because it's only been about 9 days since Mercury went retrograde. As of tomorrow, when the sun meets Mercury, it'll be 9 days. So it's usually a little longer, like at the midpoint of the retrograde, so maybe like 11 days or so. But it's coming a little earlier this time, and Mercury will go direct in 2 weeks on the 7th. Mercury and the sun have something to say to one another. The sun, and they are in the beams of the sun. They are in the Cazimi. This is what we call Cazimi, Cazimi. And it's when the Venus and the sun, or the Mercury and the sun, are in the deep heat of the sun. And so the Venus Cazimi was yesterday. It was also the Venus star point. But this is a moment. It was the inferior conjunction. This is the moment when Venus and sun met. What happened yesterday? I went to a crystal expo. My friend Veronica sent me a post the other day, and it was further away than I had remembered this area of my region was. So I took a long Uber ride with another crazy Uber driver. And I got there and I started looking at the beautiful, beautiful stones they had. And some of them were from Costa Rica. Some of the crystals were from Costa Rica, which I didn't buy one of those. I always go to these things. I have a lot of crystals. I always go to these things with, the intention of, okay, it has to be special and it has to be a connection. I have to feel a connection to the stone. Maybe the stone doesn't look too special to another person, but to me, I have to feel something. And so I was moseying around. There were a couple of big rooms full of crystals, and then there were stands outside. It was a beautiful day, and I was walking around, and then I took a break and got something to drink and came back and started looking some more and thought, what stands out to me here? Well, it turns out this little stone called tanzanite or tanzanite stood out to me, and it's like a purplish blue color depending on the light, and it's very pretty, and it's found only in mines at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. And I was interested in it, and there wasn't much of it there, but I found this ring with it in it, and it's really pretty. It's really beautiful. And so it wasn't very expensive at all, and I said, it's the Venus sun. I could have gone there and found absolutely nothing. So I just looked and I said, you know what? I think this is the one. And I read the qualities and what it's about, and it was like all sorts of like things that I was saying yes to. So I was very pleased that I found this little jewel, a jewel, Venus, on the Sun Venus conjunction. So yeah, I was very pleased. So so something for me that represents this Sun Venus and something very sweet and lovely. And so what happened for you? Did you have something happen? Did you connect with an old friend? Did you hear from someone? Did you run across their profile on Instagram? Did you get a phone call or an email, or did someone tell you a story about an old friend? That's part of this as well. Maybe you got a real sense of how they're doing and how they are. Maybe they looked happy. Maybe you heard good things about someone, or maybe you felt you needed to get in touch again. So this was very, very potent yesterday, and I expect that Mercury and the Sun tomorrow will also be very potent. This is a week to pay close attention to your life, to sense into your life, and also make a wish for the new time coming. What do you want to create for, what's fertile in your soul right now to create when Neptune goes into Aries? This is planting new seeds. This is something really we want to focus on, the new. And so as the Sun is now in Aries, and we're moving towards this Neptune in Aries, and then Venus and Mercury will eventually come back, we are looking at this dramatic shift forward in our lives. Remember what I was saying last week, the 0 Aries point is good luck. Where is that in your chart? Where is it? How does it play out? Like mine's in my 8th house. I have good fortune in transformation. That turns my life around. I can do that I'm very good at transforming my life. So where are you really good? Where's your talent? Where's your luck? Where's your fortune? That 0 Aries point is where that is. Pay attention. So I can't say enough about this week, and it's a special one. We have some really dynamic aspects coming. So stay tuned with me on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, because you'll want to hear more about this as we process our feelings, process this shift and change, process into the new week. If you need support during this time because it's complicated, this is deep, don't think of this in a shallow way. Don't think of it as something fleeting. Something deep is happening, and it's going to be here to stay for a while. So if you need support, contact me. Go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and book a session. Click book online, and you can have Reiki, you can have astrology, you can have a card reading, and you can also really get deep and digging into this when we do expansion mentoring. And you can be with me during the next 3, 6, 12 months together, working through these things, watching the hills and valleys of your life as these changes are processed in your new world, because we're entering this new time. So much is changing, so much. If you also want more information about all these changes as a whole, I suggest you purchase my masterclass for 2025, The Liminal Labyrinth, which is on my website. It's only $55, and you can pick that up at thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online, and it's there as an option to purchase. And once you do, I will send you the link. You can watch the video and you have it for life. And you can, go back and review this year ahead, because this is an intense year and we've got so many changes, and I talk about them a lot, and people ask questions in that masterclass, and it's very juicy, so I highly recommend it. So in the meantime, contact me if you will. Have a beautiful week. See you on the other side of the eclipse and Neptune entering Aries. Let's stay together this week and stay in touch. Love and gratitude to each and every one of you. Have a beautiful, gorgeous week.